Grasp your mortality tightly. Grip of the infinite. Resist the assault. Temporal violence.
Hello, welcome exiles to my Hexblast Mines Trickster. Now you might think those things don't sound like they go together, but they actually do. And when I break down this character, it's going to make a lot of sense. Now to start things off with, let's start out with Sandstorm Visage. Sandstorm Visage is one of the coolest new uniques we have. It says, hey, if you have an attack, basically a weapon with good base crit, now that base crit applies to your spells. If you've heard about this item, you've probably heard the theory of, oh, just throw trypannon on. I want to dispel that theory right now and basically try to protect people from making a poor choice, which trypannon, in my opinion, is strictly never the play. It is cool that you get to 100 base crit so quickly, but ultimately, when it comes to making a crit tree, where you want to get crit damage, crit multi, a lot of that, on your tree itself, by default, most of the crit nodes, they come with crit chance with it. Assassination comes with crit chance. Doomcast comes with crit chance. If I got over to Arcane Potency, it comes with crit chance. The majority of crit nodes come with crit chance. Not only that, but if you have something like a build that generates power charges, a lot of times crit builds have easy access to power charges, that gives you crit chance. You get crit chance if you go for spell suppress. There's a lot of free crit chance you get. You don't need 100 base crit to easily cap your crit without too much investment. The other part of trypannon that's a bad deal is you're giving up 2 weapon slots. Very, very powerful. Consider 2 weapon slots that you have decent crafted gear for that could represent plus 4 levels, 300% spell damage, 90 crit multi, 30 cast speed. Like, if you actually had these crafted out, you start lining up the stats, and that's just, that's a bad example in terms of, oh, that's OP gear crafted, but my point is the power difference, it's not even close in terms of power. But the other super big significant downside that I don't think people really realize or think about is when you're holding a trypannon, your movement is effectively gutted, because you can't do shield charge, and your choice is leap slam. And it's leap slam with a weapon that has a slow base attack speed, and it's leap slam on a character that wants to scale spells. Your attack speed scaling is just not going to exist, really. So you're giving up basically massive movement, you're giving up massive damage, more than you might realize, and capping crit is ultimately pretty easy, especially when you consider what I'm going to recommend is a base that has high crit chance in general. For example, a Prophecy Wand comes with a 8% base crit. If you roll a top roll crit chance on this, I have one in my stash because I had basically a weapon before this that I crafted, you get up to, right here, you get up to 11 base crit. So if I ended up finishing the suffixes on this weapon a little bit better, I could get 11 base crit. That is more than enough to have very easy time crit capping without having to basically sacrifice all of your gear power in terms of, like, on this thing, I have plus 2 levels and 130% spell damage. This looks complicated to craft. I think I'm going to make a separate video about how easy this is to craft, because it actually is. You might think this is expensive, but it's not expensive, like, at all. This is one of the cheapest GG crafts you can do for my build specifically, for chaos spells. It's not going to work the same for elemental spells or other things, but for my build, this is actually a really easy craft, and I'll explain it, and I think I'll make a separate video about it. Now, going into this character, why Hexblast, why Miner? So Hexblast, to start out with, is a skill that has extremely bad crit, so that pairs well with Sandstorm. A helmet that says, hey, we're going to pick your crit up a massive amount. It benefits immensely more than any other spell because it has the lowest crit in the game besides Heralds. And then on top of that, it also has a very bad cast time. Now, this is where mines come into play. Generally, when you're looking at a mine or a trap skill, something that would be good to attach trap or mine to, you're looking at skills that have very bad cast times or attack rates. Because what it does is it overwrites that default attack rate, and it attaches the trap throw speed, which is basically 0.5, or the mine throw speed, which is 0.35. Which is insane, if you think about it. Going from a 1 to a 0.35 is almost like a 200% more, basically, cast rate modifier, just by attaching a mine support to this. It gets even better when you consider the fact that mines also have amazing nodes, and honestly, with Hexblast, the fact that I can just kind of mindlessly just walk around, press the E key, not have to aim, and I'm just hitting everything on the screen, it feels pretty good. Now, key difference between mines and traps. Why are we doing mines with Hexblast and not traps? Well, it's pretty simple. Traps, they all trigger at the same time. If you throw a bunch of traps on an enemy, the enemy spawns, all the traps hit at the exact same game tick. The issue with this is, for Hexblast to get the 100% more damage, you need to be consuming a curse off of the enemy, or a hex off the enemy, right? So if they all hit on the same game tick, one of those will have the hex where it gets the 100% more damage, and the other 19 traps or whatever won't have that extra damage. But mines, a key difference is they activate sequentially. So essentially, you'll throw down 20 mines, they might all activate within a very short time frame, but there is time in between each activation and each hit. This means if I have a character with I'm running a Blasphemy right now, a Blasphemy in combination with a LE weakness on hit, I can do this with a +2, basically I have +2 curses, so I can have both the Blasphemy aura and the LE weakness on hit aura. But basically the way it works is I'm walking around, the enemy gets cursed by my Blasphemy, I Hexblast, hits that enemy, has the empowered AoE, and that Hexblast that consumes the Blasphemy aura then applies the elemental weakness on hit. And now as I chuck more mines onto the enemy and I keep activating them in very quick succession, what ends up happening is Hexblast hits, it consumes Blasphemy aura, Hexblast applies elemental weakness, the next Hexblast hits, it consumes the LE weakness, and it reapplies the LE weakness. So it basically allows us to guarantee have that 100% more damage every single hit for that extra juice. Another key thing about this character I should note is, you might notice, hey, why are you running conductivity? Well, Hexblast has a very unique property in that it bases its damage on the lowest resistance of the monster. So if the lowest resistance is lightning res, for example, it will base our damage based on that. So it can scale with pen, and it can scale with exposure, stuff like that. I only chose conductivity because the presence for conductivity was super cheap, and it comes with some regen. This is going to be an amulet I'm going to swap out of, but it's a temporary solution for, hey, getting a free Blasphemy aura and just getting into maps and rolling. Not going to be the end game thing, but if you're wondering why conductivity with a chaos scale, that's why. Other great benefits for this character is Hexblast has the ability to freeze, shock, ignite, so we're always freezing and shocking enemies. So far I played through one Sanctum and it was a complete breeze, just freezing every single mob and deleting them really quickly. It was clean, it was easy, and it felt good. Other advantages of this character is we don't care about curses because I decided to run an Aziri's Reflection. This works really well with a build that's going to have a couple curses in it. Not only that, it works well with Trickster because it has a bunch of evasion, it has good ES, it gives us curse immunity. This is just an all-around feels good chest, and it's all, or not chest, shield. Eventually, maybe min-maxing, we can craft a rare shield that's better, but for right now, this is just a feels good shield, and we just throw it on the build. On top of that, other nice things with this character, not only are we curse immune, we're going to be reflect immune. We don't care about those mods because we're a miner and we're chaos based. Not only that, we don't care about regen because our regen doesn't matter because we're running a mana flask and we're not a regen based character. We are based on energy shield sustain via ghost shards and spellbreaker with suppress. Very good mechanics in my opinion for having a character that feels good defensively. Speaking of which, this is why I chose Trickster. You might be wondering, why not Occultist? Why not Saboteur? Why Trickster? Okay, now to start off with, I'm going to dispel why not Occultist first, because I think it's the easier one to talk about. Occultist seems like the obvious choice for a chaos-based skill. You want Wither, you want that in the build, and Wither is generally a pretty hard thing to get, because Wither represents close to 100% to 150% increased damage taken if you have these nodes plus the mastery. Now, Wither actually became a lot easier to get. So because I think Wither is easier to get, I'm going to explain why, but if Wither is easy to get, Occultist isn't very good. Also, the -20 Chaos Res, which is normally pretty valuable on a Chaos build, isn't as valuable on Hexblast, because Hexblast is a build where you kind of want to lower other resistances. Granted, you can lower 20 Cold Res, and that's useful if you go for the Cold Res route, but ultimately, I think you take out Wither from Occultist, and Occultist just ends up falling behind damage-wise, because Wither was the main thing that carries Occultist damage. Granted, there are nice things about being able to apply that curses to hexproof enemies, but you don't actually need that in order to have Hexblast do its basically extra big ploof, because on a Hex... And I'll showcase this at the end. We'll do a Hexproof map just to showcase this, but basically, Hexproof means the enemies don't get the Hex basically applied to them in terms of its effect, but mechanics that interact with hexes still operate. Like you see the key, basically it looks like a lock symbol above the enemy's head instead of the curse symbol. And that means, hey, if you're doing a mechanic that is based on consuming hexes, it still works. But if you're concerned about the hex actually doing something, like LE weakness actually making the res worse, it won't do that in a hexproof map. That's basically the key difference there. You might think, oh, Profane Bloom is nice, I need that for clear. We don't need that for clear. Hexblast has insane AoE. Just from these AoE nodes here and this anointment here, we get 80% AoE from that alone, and that's a pretty huge AoE, and we can improve upon that if we really want to. But from my experience so far, it just hits pretty much everything on the screen pretty well, and you can be the judges for yourself. Lance from the future, upon editing the video, I realized I forgot to state how we're getting Wither. Wither's actually super easy to get now. It is right here, Balance of Terra. This is a new jewel with basically, it's like a Watcher's Eye in terms of it can roll a bunch of random modifiers. There's like a pool, like 20 mods. One of those mods is specifically Inflict Wither for 2 seconds on hit if you've cast Despair recently. Basically what this means is, and it lasts for 10 seconds. Basically what this means is, I'm considering Despair is pretty much like a Divine Blessing or something. Just, you know, I get to a boss, I'm like, okay, I want to start doing damage. Let me just throw down a Despair. It doesn't do anything, it's just a matter of casting it, proccing that benefit, and that means we have Wither on hit. This is some of the easiest Wither on hit possible in the game. Usually you can do like a Glorious Vanity for like 25% chance on hit. This is 100% chance on hit, and it doesn't require us trying to fit in a Glorious Vanity and have that mess up our tree a little bit sort of thing. Works super easy, and to me, with this in the game accessible, Occultist is no longer going to be king of chaos builds necessarily, because you have the access to Wither with basically any build you ever want to play. It just requires basically something that feels like playing with Divine Blessing, where you want to do Giga Dam, well, just press the curse. All right, back to the video. Now, why Trickster over Saboteur? Well, to put it lightly, I think Trickster has one of the best defensive sets in the game. Spell Suppress plus Escape Mastery. This Evasion Ghost Shroud combination, I think, is one of the best defensive sets in the game. I think it's super powerful. And to me, that has a lot of value. And not only that, but the other nodes here are quite good. Getting +2 frenzies and charge duration is a very considerable amount of damage with a build that's running charged mines anyway. This represents 20% throw speed and 8% more damage, which is comparable to some of the Saboteur nodes I'd be grabbing anyways. And on top of that, I have the ability to do a Forbidden Flesh and Flame combo to steal one of the Saboteur's nodes, and most of the Saboteur nodes are honestly pretty cheap, especially the mine ones. I bought, basically I'm going to try out both Bomb Specialist and Bomb Demolitionist, or whatever. I'm going to try both of them out, see which one I like more, but essentially each jewel was 20-30 C, it was free as can be, and I'm going to try it out, and I think it'll be fine, because ultimately that's half of the mine power specific stuff, and the other stuff on Saboteur, the Blind and Ascendancy, Pyromaniac, those are both defensive nodes, and I like the power of Spellbreaker and Escape Artist more than I like those nodes for scaling a character. So that's why Trickster over Saboteur for this build specifically. Okay, got through all the explanation part. Hopefully that makes some level of sense on the breakdown of what I'm doing here. Let's go ahead and I'll find a Hexproof map just to showcase you what it looks like. I wonder if I can just type Hexproof in here. I can't. Okay, whatever. We'll just go ahead and grab some random T14. Do we want to run a mineral pools? I don't freaking know. Okay, let's just type in Hex. Let's go Scour, and then let's try to alt for Hex. I don't want to like burn Chaos to do this, but I guess I might have to, because I don't know how long it's going to take to find a Hexproof mod. Surely it won't take that long, right? Alright, but my patience is going to get the better of me. My patience is going to get the better. Okay, whatever. Screw it. I'm chaos spamming. I'm chaos spamming. We'll hit it. We'll hit it very soon, very shortly. I'm not going to burn too many chaos, just like a few. Just a few. Come on, Hexproof. I did type Hex correctly, right? Okay. Please. I swear this was like one of the most okay, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. All right, Hexproof with less CDR. I don't know if CDR will break our I don't know if mines have an inbuilt cooldown for stuff. I have no idea. We'll find out. Anyways, this will showcase doing a Hexproof map, showcase that Hexblast still does the big ploof explosion. It just is basically we're not getting the minus res from conductivity. We're not getting the minus res from LA weakness. That's the main change. It's a perfect map mod we can run. This character can run basically every map mod. The only one I can think of that would be essentially a problem for us to run would be a less recovery rate mod. A less recovery rate mod with oh, I want to say, can I? Oh my goodness, less CDR is really breaking our frostblink. I was gonna say a less recovery rate mod with basically if you have a bunch of increased effective of map modifiers, if you have a bunch of that stat in your Atlas passive tree, that can effectively brick your sustain for spell suppress. Technically, ghost shrouds might still be enough to sustain us, but that's an example of where it could go wrong, essentially. But as you can see, hexproof map isn't a problem. We can still perfectly have the big exploding hex blast. There's no issue there. Man, breach feels really stale when you don't have the mods for it. I was gonna say, I was like, why is this opening so slow? Because I've been playing with the breach nodes pretty much the whole league, and I just unspec'd out of them because I want to do a boss rushing strategy in order to rush Sanctum. Side note, I'm freaking in love with Sanctum. It's such a fun mechanic. I don't understand the hate for it at all. I really like it. It's probably one of my favorite mechanics to date. I'll make a video guide on that as well. I'm going to make probably my plan for essentially farming Sanctum if you want to go hard in Sanctum and you feel bad about the fact that you only get one Sanctum per map. Well, my plan is this effectively to do a boss rushing strategy to just farm as much Sanctum as fast as possible, because the one map limit means there's a huge delay in between when you can actually do a full Sanctum run, and that feels bad, and I'd rather make that delay shorter and shorter and shorter, pretty much. So let's go ahead and find the boss wherever he may be. I should not have done this map. Mineral pools is a very like bad layout in terms of like ability to move around it, because it has all these weird like essentially like, I don't know what the word for it is, but it's just a weird layout to like, not weird, but like just bad in terms of like walking around in it. Oh, there are more monsters over here. Don't mind if we do. Go on. Alright, I'm not gonna worry about the rest of this Legion. I'll just go kill the boss, and then we will we'll probably close out the video. So that is what the Hexblast Trickster Miner looks like. I didn't go over my other thing that I forgot to mention, which the other reason I'm going Trickster is one step ahead. This node might seem like it's really not that good of a node. It really only represents 8% action speed. But the thing about this node is it's not just 8% action speed. It's guaranteed you're moving 20% faster than your enemies because they have a capped action speed. This is very big for something like Sanctum, making enemies' default attacks go out quicker, so that way you're more likely to kill them before that. But not only that, the biggest portion of this node that I love, it instantly makes you freeze and chill immune, because freeze and chill are action speed modifiers. Those don't affect you. But besides freeze and chill, there are so many things in this game that affect action speed that you can't counter and are extremely annoying. And having this node just gets rid of all that trash, all that annoying stuff. If you ever played One Step Ahead, you know what I mean. But it's one of those nodes where seemingly it's like, I don't know if that's too powerful, but the level of feels good and just enjoyment you're going to have throughout playing the character with this node equipped, although it might be not the flashiest damage, it just feels so good. That's just my opinion on it. So anyways, that is the Hexblast Trickster Miner. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Take care, Exiles.